Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So earned value management is a topic which is quite critical for your PMP exam in the PMBOK 8th edition version of the exam, right? I mean, you can definitely expect at least 3 or 4 questions in your PMP exam on earned value management, if not more. However, when it comes to learning the formulas of earned value management, many PMP aspirants get overwhelmed because they just don't know which are the important ones to remember and apply. So in this video, I will break down only the bare minimum formulas of earned value management which you need to remember for your PMP exam. So this will not only help you to take the stress off your mind when it comes to memorizing the earned value management formulas, but also it will help you apply these equations to solve scenario-based questions for your PMP exam. So give this video a like, get a pen and a paper, and let's get the discussion started.
Okay, so let's get started. Now, as part of this lecture, what we are going to do is we are going to learn only the formulas which are relevant for your PMP exam and which you can apply in your PMP exam to solve scenario-based questions. So to keep this lecture focused, we will not be discussing about overall what the earned value management topic is as part of this video, right? If you want to learn about that topic, there is a full video on my YouTube channel which you can refer to that talks about the specifics of earned value management as a concept. And also, if you need to have a deep dive, you can check out my Udemy course as well, which has a very high level of detailed explanation regarding all the concepts of earned value management that you might need. And also, as part of this course, you get 9 PDUs as part of your PMP exam renewal process. So just to keep this lecture focused, let us talk about only the formulas which are important for you from a PMP exam perspective. Okay, so the first formula which you need to remember is cost variance, okay, which is your earned value minus actual cost. Next is your schedule variance, which is your earned value minus your planned value, right? And on similar notes, if you talk about the CPI, which is cost performance index, which is your earned value upon actual cost. Similarly, if you talk about schedule performance index, it is your earned value upon planned value. Now, you know, as part of the PMP exam principles that if your cost variance is greater than 0, which means your earned value is greater than your actual cost, it is good, right? Which means that your project is under budget. Okay. Similarly, if your schedule variance is greater than 0, what it means? It means your earned value is greater than your planned value, which is also good, which means your project is ahead of schedule. Now, to sort of take it on the other side of the spectrum, if these are like less than zeros, okay, so for example, if cost variance is less than 0, schedule variance is less than 0, you know that it's the other way around, that it is over budget and then it is behind schedule. Okay, so this is all you need to remember as part of your PMP exam. And on similar notes, this concept can be applied for CPI and SPI as well. So for example, if your CPI is greater than 1, it means good, which means your project is under budget. And if your SPI is greater than 1, it is good also, which means your project is ahead of schedule. And if it is less than 1, it is over budget. And if your SPI is less than 1, which means it is behind schedule, right? So plain and simple. So in terms of formulas, what you need to remember, you need to remember these two formulas and you need to remember these two formulas of CPI and SPI. Okay, simple. Now to sort of memorize that what is good and what is bad, it is very simple here that if you have this curve which is at 0, this is -1, this is +1. For CPI and SPI, always remember that higher is good or better, right? Which means if your CPI is greater than 1 or your cost variance is greater than 0, it is good. If your CPI or SPI is less than 1 or your cost variance or schedule variance is less than 0, which means it is bad. So for CPI and SPI, remember it like this, that higher is good or higher is better.
Now, before we move further, if you are preparing for your PMP exam, I would recommend that you check out my PMP exam preparation courses on Udemy, starting from the basics of project management to full 35 PDO trainings for your PMP exam, to mock exam simulators where you can practice actual PMP style questions, to learning the most advanced concepts of the PMP exam like the earned value management. As we are discussing in this video, I have designed courses for exam aspirants of every level. All the links will be provided in the description section of the video in case you are interested to join the class. Reviews from the previous students have been excellent. And now let's get back to the main video.
Next, let's move on to the formula of EAC, which is estimate at completion. Okay, now for estimate at completion, you need to remember 4 variants of the formula. Okay, so the first variant is BAC, which is budget at completion divided by CPI. The second variant is your actual cost plus BAC minus your earned value. The third variant which you need to keep in mind is your actual cost plus the numerator remains the same, which is your BAC minus earned value divided by CPI into your SPI, and the final variant is AC plus estimate to completion. Okay, now the key thing for this formula is to understand when to apply what, and in your PMP exam this will be tested. Okay, so listen carefully. So when in your scenario of earned value management, it is given that the performance of the project will continue as the current CPI regardless of whether it's high or low, you need to apply this formula, which means that if your CPI doesn't change and if it says that the performance will continue, use the formula EAC is equal to BAC divided by CPI. Now, on the other hand, if it says that the cost overrun was sort of a fluke or a one-off, you need to use this formula, which means AC plus BAC minus earned value. Okay, so if it sort of gives an indication as part of the scenario that the cost overrun was a one-off and it has sort of self-corrected and now the project is going as per the plan, you need to apply this formula, which is EAC is equal to AC plus BAC minus EV. Now, if it says as part of the project, both the cost performance index and the schedule performance index will affect your estimate at completion, you need to apply this formula, which is AC plus BAC minus EV divided by CPI multiplied by your SPI. And you need to apply this formula when the project scenario gives you an indication that both your cost performance index and your schedule performance efficiency will affect the estimate at completion. And finally, this formula, which is AC plus ETC, is to be applied if it says that a totally new estimate was done and the previous estimate which was applied was not applicable or null and void, and you need to have a totally new estimate. So you need to remember this formula to apply at that point of time in a scenario. Now, I understand this might be a bit complex, and believe me that this is one of the most complex formulas you will find in your overall PMP exam syllabus, but fortunately or unfortunately, this is it. You need to remember these 4 scenarios of your EAC. Okay, so just to revise, EAC is equal to BAC divided by CPI if the scenario says that the performance will continue as it is. Okay, next, EAC is equal to AC plus BAC minus EV if it says that the cost overrun was a fluke or a one-off. Okay, next, EAC is equal to AC plus BAC minus EV divided by CPI into SPI, which means that both the cost performance index and the schedule performance efficiency will affect the final cost of the project. Okay, and finally, EAC is equal to AC plus ETC, and this formula needs to be applied if it says that a new estimate was done because for whatever reason the previous estimate was null and void. So you need to remember these 4 formulas as part of your estimate at completion. Next, moving on, another formula which you need to remember as part of your earned value management is variance at completion, and this is quite simple. Variance at completion is equal to your budget at completion minus your estimate at completion. Now, of course, if this is greater than 0, now if your variance at completion, which is BAC minus EAC, is greater than 0, which means your budget at completion is greater than your estimate at completion, which means it's good that your project is under budget, right? And similarly, if your VAC, which is variance at completion, is less than 0, which means your estimate at completion is greater than your budget at completion, it means that this is over budget. Okay, so you need to remember this. And finally, the last formula which you need to remember as part of your earned value management overall topic is TCPI, which is to complete performance index. And it is calculated as BAC minus your earned value divided by BAC minus your actual cost, or there is another variation of this formula, which is your BAC minus your earned value divided by EAC instead of your BAC here minus your actual cost. Okay, and this formula is to be applied when the goal of the project is to finish within the original budget, because BAC is your original budget, right? However, this formula for TCPI needs to be applied when there is a approved revised budget for the project, which is your estimate at completion. So for example, your project budget has been revised, then you need to calculate your TCPI based on your EAC and not on your BAC. Okay. Now, how to interpret TCPI? It's very simple, that if your TCPI is greater than 1, it means that the team needs to work more efficiently than they had ever been. Okay, so higher the value above 1, the less realistic is your target to complete the project on time. Okay, if TCPI is equal to 1, it means that you are maintaining exactly the same efficiency rate for your project from a cost standpoint. And if it is less than 1, it means that the target of the project is achievable even at the reduced efficiency, which means the project has a good financial headroom. And the way to remember this is just opposite to what we had learned here as part of our CPI and SPI formulas. It is just the opposite to that. Here for TCPI, higher is bad. Okay, and this is how you need to remember TCPI, that for TCPI, higher is bad. Now let's take an example just to understand how this TCPI is linked to the actual project scenarios. That if there is a project scenario given to you where your CPI is 0.8, okay, and your TCPI is 1.15. Okay, what does it mean? It basically means that today, as part of your project, if you have to complete the project within your budget, you need to earn 1.15 pounds, let's say, per £1 spent. However, historically, your cost performance index has been 0.8, right? Which means if your cost performance index is your earned value divided by your actual cost, since it is less than 1, your actual cost is higher than your earned value, right? Now, actually, till now in the project, you were spending £1. However, you are earning 80 pence. However, if your TCPI is 1.15, it means that you need to earn 1.15 pounds for every £1 spent on your TCPI. Okay. Now this is how your TCPI basically links to your CPI, right? So we have seen as part of this scenario where that when your CPI is 0.8 and your TCPI is 1.15, it's a bad thing, right? Because since your CPI is less than 1, you are basically actually having actual costs more than your earned value. So it's the bad thing. And also if your TCPI is 1.15, which means that from today onwards, you need to earn 1.15 pounds as part of your earned value for every £1 spent. Okay, so that's 15% on top, and which means that it's a tricky situation for your overall project. So to summarize, the way TCPI can be linked to your cost performance index is by understanding that if your TCPI is greater than your CPI, which is in this scenario, this is a tricky situation. This is a bad situation, and that is primarily because now the project has very small financial headroom to complete within budget. However, if your TCPI is less than your CPI, it means it's a good thing, okay, which means that your project has a lot of headroom. So in terms of your formula, what you need to remember that for TCPI, there are two variants. First is BAC minus EV divided by BAC minus AC if your project is at budget, at your original budget. However, if your project budget was revised, it is calculated as EAC minus your actual cost as the denominator. And that is all you need to remember as part of your PMP exam. So to summarize, let's do a quick brain dump, okay, for all the formulas of your PMP exam earned value. Okay, so your cost variance is equal to earned value minus your actual cost. Your schedule variance is equal to earned value minus planned value. Similarly, your CPI is earned value upon actual cost. Your SPI is earned value minus planned value. Okay, plain and simple. All good to remember, right? Next, you have your EAC, and there are four variants of EAC that you need to remember. The first variant is BAC divided by CPI, and that is applicable when the performance will continue as it is, okay, no changes. The next variant is AC plus BAC minus earned value, and that is applicable when it says that the cost overrun was a fluke or a one-off, and that will be adjusted moving forward. Next, you have your another variant as AC plus BAC minus earned value divided by CPI multiplied by SPI, and that is applicable when both cost and schedule efficiency will affect your project. And the final variant is AC plus ETC, and that is applicable when the scenario will say that a new estimate was done. Okay, and this is your ETC, which is expected to complete. And finally, for TCPI, we have two formulas. The first formula is your BAC minus EV divided by BAC minus AC, and that is applicable when the goal of the project is to finish within the original budget. However, if the budget was revised, the formula will be BAC minus EV divided by EAC minus AC. And overall, for all these formulas of your overall brain dump for your earned value management formulas, you need to remember how to interpret as part of your overall project context. So for example, greater than 0, less than 0, greater than 1, less than 1, and all those interdependencies that we have discussed to interpret these ratios. And finally, you also need to keep in mind the relationship between your TCPI and CPI as well, as we have learned as part of this video. So to summarize, if your TCPI is less than your CPI, it means that the project has a lot of headroom. However, if your TCPI is greater than your CPI, the interpretation is that the required future efficiency of the project exceeds what the team has demonstrated, and the target is increasingly unrealistic. Okay, and that is all you need to remember as part of your overall formulas for earned value management as part of the PMP exam.
I hope you liked the video. Please press the like button, and I will see you again in the next one.